I'd like to welcome everyone to our first board meeting of 2026. Thank you, those that are, I think I hear a, okay. Thank you all for coming. Those of you that are here, those of you that are watching live, and those that will watch the recording. Again, thank you for being here. At this time, we'll have a roll call, please.
Troy Carr.
Here.
Jamie Clapham.
Here.
Katie Urban.
Here.
Donna Moore.
Here.
Walt Swan is absent with notice. Angela Rafferty.
Here.
Christine Stephenson.
Here.
Marissa Bonnes.
Here.
And Elena Braun.
Here.
All right, I'd like to invite you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we know where that's the echoes? Okay, tonight we do not have an invocation, and we are going to look at the approval of proposed agenda. We are going to remove from the agenda item 12, Juliet, Kilo, and Lima. These policies will be sent back to the policy committee to be reviewed and edited, and will be brought back to the board. We will also be editing the item 18, executive session. We have no need for an executive session tonight. So I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda, editing items 12, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, and item 18.
Motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. This time we have sharing the success.
we have quite a few this evening. I apologize, but it's a good thing, so.
Good.
I love it. Challenged. There we go. All right, we're going to start off this evening by recognizing some amazing young high school leaders that are engaging in service to others. Each of the students that will be recognized tonight will also be nominated for recognition at the Helpline Center's Spirit of Volunteerism event in the spring. These are our annual Student Volunteer Awards. Did you want to say? Okay. We are going to start with, if you would come up here when I say your name and stay up here until we're done with all three of the volunteers. We're going to start with Sakurako Tennant, senior at Stevens. Thank you. Very good. Sako is always willing to help kindly in any way she can. She is busy with many upper level courses, but manages her time well so that she can get involved in meaningful ways with organizations that she cares about. Sako does it all, from youth city council to tutoring peers, to sister city meetings, to teaching origami at a retirement center. She is kind and humble despite her substantial accomplishments. Saco has also implemented her own folding crane peace project in our elementary schools, where she serves as a role model and mentor for the students. Her positive impact will be felt for years to come. She is currently working with the airport for a student art display project and is also a co-chair for the student art auction coming up in March. Saku engaged in many of these activities even before she began recording them into Interview, our website that tracks service. Her resume in Interview is vast, but there is even more that is not documented. I honestly don't know how she finds time for all of this in addition to her serious class load. She is an amazing leader for our school and our community. And hopefully you're the first one. Nope. We have very nice certificates for each of these students and a card, and you are included on the student volunteer of the semester. Yes. Are the others here? Okay, so we'll go ahead and read the others, but stay here with us. Yep, okay. Next is Cameron Stauffacher, senior at Central. Cameron goes above and beyond in all that she does. She serves as a Central Senior Class President and leads our senior class committee in their school spirit events. She dedicates several hours a week for this and serves on our student council in the event committee. What stands out about Cameron is that she speaks up for other students. Most recently, she attended the student school board meeting to advocate for students at Central High School. She also serves on the National Guard student group, participates in Central Competitive Cheer and Dance, Winter Cheer, Track and Field, and Honor Society. We are also excited to have Cameron serve on the planning committee of the 2026 Senior Service Day. Her insight, creativity, and inspiration create motivation for the group. We are truly blessed to have Cameron lead our school in such a wonderful way. Unfortunately, Cameron is busy with activities tonight and couldn't be here. So we will go on to our third, which is Brady Zander, a senior at RCAA. Brady has been working with various teachers and staff at RCAA on projects at the school. He collaborates with the Rotary Club on our clothing closet. He helps organize and put out clothes. Any student can get what they need from the donated clothes. He also works with the food pantry at RCAA, where families from RCAS can get a food box monthly. Brady organizes and helps with the families receive their food. Well, these are the two official organizations where Brady volunteers his time. He is always willing to help any RCAA staff with a variety of tasks. He has personally helped a classroom's goal of recycling and taking care of the boxes in that classroom. He works alongside teachers in taking the recyclables out to the appropriate containers when they are full too. He has also helped organize and set up laboratories for the different science classes. He has helped RCAA teachers with odd jobs around the school, putting up signs and organizing the PE equipment. Rapid City Alternative Academy is lucky to have such a dedicated volunteer within the building. Brady Zander. Oh, yeah.
Please do.
Oh, just wait a little bit. Thanks, Jocelyn.
Oh, I didn't know you were here.
Very good. They would like you to stay up here so that they can talk about you. Yes, you please. And I also just briefly want to say we should also recognize Kristen Kiner for all of her work that she does with the service.
Ms. Clapham.
Yes, and I know as a teenager, no one wants to stand here and have people stare at you, so, smile true. I just, in the simplest way, I want to say, there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of, oh, teenagers these days, and I always, when we have these moments and how many people we have in this room and people like you, I'm like, you know what? Like, our world's gonna be okay. Because people like you are impressively and humbly leading. And I'm so appreciative of that and appreciative of the example you are to your peers, and the example you are to adults, not just your peers. So you're doing great things and just thank you for being wonderful, I said, and giving me hope that, I said, this world's gonna be okay.
Any other board member? Right. Again, I think they deserve another hand. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're
Thank
good
you.
now. Thank you.
so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, next up, we have our Rapid City Central Girls Wrestling. And I'm not sure who all is here for that, but if you
Well,
would
there's a
come
bunch of
up,
them
I
out
would
there.
appreciate it. All right, thank you. There we go. Perfect. Oh, and the trophy.
Go.
It's a good group.
Oh, let's see the cup.
I want to drink out of it. Can we drink out of it?
It's a good group.
I know.
Isn't
Isn't it?
So as you can see by the trophy that is being passed around, we had some champions, Rapid City Central Girls Wrestlers. It was a great way to open the Lakota National Invitational. Rapid City Central High School made a powerful statement capturing first place overall in the girls wrestling meet with an outstanding 149.5 team points. Rapid City Central Cobblers Girls Wrestling dominated the 17-team field, crowning 4 individual champions, more than any other school in the tournament. Leading the charge were Jamie Washachek, 100 pounds, who battled her way to victory in an exciting all-central final against teammate Lauren, Livernice. Okay. Also Savannah Rondell at 105 pounds, Anna Henstein, 125, and Langston Huffman, 140. This championship performance showcases the grit, determination, and momentum of girls wrestling in our district. Congratulations to these incredible athletes, their coaches, and families on an unforgettable start to the Invitational, and for representing RCAS with pride, heart, and excellence.
All right.
Any parent who wants a head-on picture.
Yeah,
feel
if you
free to
need,
stand
yeah,
right
if you need to come
We
around
promise
there.
you don't bite.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. All right, just stay right there one moment. Miss Urban.
Congratulations, ladies, and just like, wow, look how far we've come. This girls' team didn't exist when I was in high school, and that was a while ago, but I think it's fairly new, so, yeah.
Year ahead of us, Nebraska maybe another year ahead of us, so we've been slowly, every year adding about 3 to 4. This year we kind of exploded.
That's amazing. I'm so glad to see it, and congratulations to all of you.
Ms. Clapham.
Really quick, congratulations, and as Ms. Urban said, like, how far we've come, and I just look at this little one right here, and you guys don't know how much you lead, 10 years from now. Who knows, she'll be up here with a championship too, and that's really, really meaningful and powerful, so you're doing great things, and congratulations.
All right, any other board member? All right, ladies, just keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Congratulations, everyone. Great job. We also had two teams who participated in the LNI hand games, but they were not able to be here tonight. So we're going to save that recognition for a later meeting. And move on to academics. We've recognized students for service, for athletics, and now for academics. It's a great night.
Yes.
So each spring, all South Dakota Public School students grades 3 through 8 and 11 take the South Dakota Achievement Test. On the spring 2025 South Dakota Science Assessment, Brecken Neff earned a perfect score. A perfect score. A rare and commendable accomplishment that places students among an elite group across the state. In fact, Brecken is one of only 51 students statewide to reach this level of excellence. On the spring 2025 South Dakota Math Assessment, Sophia Lee, John Davies, and Wilson Mong also earned a perfect score. A perfect score, I'll say it again.
Wow.
A rare and outstanding accomplishment, again, that places them among the top performing students in the state. They were 3 of only 16 students statewide to reach this level of excellence. Tonight, if they would join me up here, please. Perfect. We are here to recognize and celebrate this moment in a way that honors its significance. These students' success exemplifies the high standards of our district and upholds and serves as a powerful example of what's possible when students, educators, and families work together in the pursuit of academic excellence. Congratulations, Brecken, Sophia, John, and Wilson. We are proud to celebrate your success, and I have a letter personally signed by the South Dakota State Secretary of Education for each one of you, congratulating you personally.
All right. Again, parents, if you want to get a front shot this way, you're. Any board member comments? Ms. Claflin.
I can't leave any of these great students without comments. Just congratulations, and I don't know, once you reach perfection, I'm really excited to see what you do next. Maybe you'll start helping to write the test
Yeah.
even. So really impressive work, and thanks for working so hard and representing our district so well.
Oh, any other comments? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. One of my abilities as president is to make executive decisions, and I'm going to make one now. The rule of the policy is if you don't get a open forum request in before the meeting starts, then they're not allowed. But I see that we have a state representative here, and she has come and spent her time to be here. So I would be remiss not to allow her to speak at this time. So I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Kathy Rice. All right, Ms. Rice. All right. And Ms. Rice, you have 5 minutes.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. My name is Kathy Rice. I'm a representative in District 29. And I've been working with a student out of Stevens, and he wanted to present a bill in Pierre. He was one of our pages last year, and he was really impressed with this young man. And he came to me with an idea that he thought would help students in his school, just on a certain thing. So he's on the agenda for his thing tonight, and I have two, I already posted the bill that he wrote, and I put it to the legal counsel research that we have there. And he'll introduce his bill that he's going to bring to Pierre, and I'm going to just kind of represent him, and I'll introduce him, in committee, and then let him to talk about his bill that he wants to do. So we're creating a legislator there in high school here. And he's got a good idea. And I think it's fair, and I think it's fair for the students. And so I just wanted to support him and his you know, his way. And then I have 2 already sponsored in the Senate for his bill and 4 of us in the House. And so, and one of them's a Democrat, and the rest of us, you know, there's a lot of, but it's a bipartisan bill, and it's good for all students, you know. So it's a real, one of it is Nicole, Representative Old Urabal, yes. She supported the bill, signed on, and Heather Baxter has signed on in this area. And I just looked at it. And in the Senate, it is Senator Taffy Howard has signed on to the bill, and Senator I can't think of her name. I just drew a blank, but there's another senator from the other side of our state that has signed on to this bill. So I'm just kind of proud of this, proud of him, this young man, and I hope you guys enjoy his bill that he's going to present.
All right, thank you very much. We didn't necessarily need comments, open forum comments, unless a board member would like to address the representative. Okay. Student reports, Ms. Braun from Stevens.
All right. So good evening, board members, and welcome back from much needed winter break. To start, I want to report on a change our students saw as they entered their classes this morning. All classes are semester classes, and semester grades are your final grades. This is a change from previously where most classes were year-long classes, and your semester grade was part of your final grade, but not your final grade. For many students, their schedule shifted a little bit, and they are still settling into a new routine. And all year-long classes are not much different this semester, but in many of my classes, teachers reviewed classroom expectations and what we could expect for the coming year. Overall, kids are slowly transitioning from the first semester to the second semester, and the seniors, including myself, are coming to terms with the fact that we graduate this year. Stevens has added several things to the school, both gifted and bought through grants over the break. Mr. Dannenbrang, our freshman seminar teacher and girls basketball coach, was gifted a star quilt and requested it be hung in the school for all students to enjoy. Additionally, through the Johnson Trust, Stevens purchased game cameras for Raider Park. So far, they have caught deer, foxes, and skunks, and these images are put onto TVs around the school so that all students can enjoy. And through a wellness grant, Stevens got a buffalo hide and skull, as well as some fidget toys for the counselor's office. We hope these new additions to our school will improve the overall environment for students. And last week, both Stevens girls and boys basketball triumphed over Central at Central. These rivalry games can get heated, and I am proud of how hard our teams have worked this year. Additionally, wrestling is in full swing. Our boys wrestling team is currently ranked second in the 4A division, and many Stevens wrestlers had outstanding performances at the Rapid City Invitational in December. Our girls wrestling team is also off to a strong start with a standout performance from Bella Morteo, who holds an 8-1 record at the Rapid City Invitational. And each quarter, Stevens showcases a department at Stevens, and for quarter 3, the English department is being showcased. So keep a lookout on Facebook for updates on what our English students at Stevens are doing in their classes. And on this Thursday, January 8th, our Title VI graduation coach, William Velez, is hosting a FAFSA night from 5:30 to 7:30 at Stevens. Students will receive help filling out the free application for federal student aid, which is a very complicated process. With this help, students will be able to get the aid they need to go to a higher education institution. And our staff spotlight for the week is head counselor Tracy Friedel. Ms. Friedel has taught at Stevens for 4 years, and she attended Southwest Minnesota State University for her undergraduate degree. Before becoming a counselor, Ms. Friedel taught, and she loved the impact she was able to have on her students academically and with their personal lives. She took this love and went back to grad school to become a counselor and mentor kids on their academic and career paths. In her free time, Ms. Friedel loves to read and be outdoors, whether that be hiking or kayaking. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. Board members, any comments for Ms. Braun? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. An excellent report. All right, Ms. Moore, I keep saying Miss Gomez.
You're all right. Good evening, board. Tonight, my report will be relatively brief as school is just getting back into swing for the second semester following winter break and finals week, which was rescheduled due to wind conditions so strong that many students experienced their first official wind day. On that note, I just want to shortly reiterate the significance of Central also switching to a fully semester-based class system this year. This change has allowed students significant flexibility to reflect on their previous course choices and modify their schedules accordingly for the latter half of the school year. It also allows for new connections to be made in those classes. Many students are very grateful for the switch as it offers them a truly clean slate heading into the new semester. Also, in the realm of academic success, I would like to highlight the improvements to our credit recovery program. Last year, Central staffed just 2 teachers full-time to oversee credit recovery. In an effort to elevate and reform the program, instruction over credit recovery courses was expanded to include the entire physical education department faculty. As a result of this change, Central went from 81 classes passed last year to over 200 so far this year. I would love to give a big shout out to our PE teachers for this incredible accomplishment. I would also like to recognize our nominated faculty of the year. The Staff Member of the Year award was given to our Register, Teresa Sherrill, for her impeccable hard work and dedication to the students. The Teacher of the Year award was given to Mr. Dewar, who teaches U.S. History 2 and 3. As someone who has worked closely with Mr. Dewar over the past 2 years, I can attest that whether he is devoting his time to his classroom, student council, or advising the senior class, or playing bagpipes in the hallway during passing period, he consistently makes our school a better place. And shifting focus to our activities, over break, both our girls and boys basketball teams played Stevens and lost. But fear not, we are hopeful to get our revenge when we reface them at Stevens on January 31st. Other upcoming activities include girls and boys basketball tonight in Sturgis and at Sioux Falls Lincoln this Friday. This coming weekend, girls and boys wrestling will also head to Bismarck to compete, while varsity speech and debate will be in Gillette at the Thunder Basin Tournament. I would also like to briefly mention a brand new club founded by students at Central, the Thrifting Club. With their motto of sharing what we're wearing, the Thrift Club aims to provide an affordable clothing option for students in the school while also reducing waste and encouraging student creativity. With that, I will conclude my report for the evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Board members, any questions for Ms. Gomez? All right, thank you, ladies. Two very good. Oh, Ms. Clapham.
I just say it's not such credit, but I really appreciate you sharing how the impact of the change and staff helping with the credit recovery. It's so important. Sometimes we often talk about, the 30,000-foot view, and we know that things happen, but we don't actually know like the outcome. So it's really good for us to hear those things and how they're directly impacting students. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
At this time, our superintendent report, Dr. Thompson.
Sorry about that pause. I have 2 main topics for you tonight that are very important, I believe. First, we'll talk about student enrollment and transfer data, and then I will discuss my superintendent entry plan summary. So in regards to I'll get rid of this. Student enrollment has been trending down, which you are all very aware of and have asked a lot of questions about. It has actually been trending down since 2014, with our largest drop, of course, occurring during the pandemic. Overall, district enrollment has decreased by almost 1,900 students since that high in 2014. So I'm going to look at a number of factors and talk about whether they are or aren't having a real impact on our student enrollment. The number of students who option out of our district every year has increased a little bit from 363 in 2016-17 to 513 in 25-26. However, I did want to point out that we had our first decrease since that initial drop this school year with a decrease of 8 students. Okay. So this is a factor that has some impact, but it won't be the largest one that you see. As we know, we have seen a significant increase in our homeschool population. It has grown from 541 students in 2016-17 to 1,839 students in 25-26, which is an increase of almost 1,300 students. What I found interesting is looking at the graph, our trend in increase is nearly identical to that of the Sioux Falls School District, and it is proportionate to several of the communities in our surrounding area, such as Sturgis or Meade County, Douglas, and Spearfish. So this is one of the largest factors that are influencing our enrollment.
Can I just ask where does this data come from? Because we know that homeschool students don't have to.
Yeah, it comes from the state, and we know that is not 100% accurate because our families just have to basically identify that they're homeschooling the very first year that they're going to do that, and they never have to update it after that. So some of those students come back to our school, some decide to go somewhere else, but this is the most accurate data that we have available to us.
I mean, just so we know we're looking, I mean, if we're looking at valid numbers, does the state tell us if once a second grader, a parent fills out that form for a second grader, do we count that second grader as homeschooled for the next 10 years if we never hear again from them?
We do, unless they come back and enroll or we get some other transfer notification.
So that second grader may have left the state, may have enrolled in private school, may have even enrolled back into RCAS, or do you think it would come off?
No, we would take them off.
If they re-enrolled in any public school, we would know about them.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
So yes, I would say the numbers are artificially inflated, but we do know that there has been a significant increase and it's trending upwards. Okay. What we have not seen is a significant increase in the number of students choosing private school. A number of people say that within the community, but our data does not support that. There has been an increase in the number of students attending Rapid City Christian, but that is offset by the decrease in students attending Rapid City Catholic schools. Another area that does have a pretty strong impact on our enrollment is the fact that kindergarten enrollment has just simply decreased over time. We had a high of 1,117 enrolled in 2017 and a low of 814 in 2025. And unfortunately, we do not have comparable data that we can share for area schools. However, that decrease is consistent with what we're seeing nationwide in regards to trends regarding birth rates.
And then for kindergarten enrollment, those parents don't have to fill out homeschool. If a parent decides to enroll their kindergartner in homeschool, because they don't have to enroll in school until second grade.
They would have to, yes, they would have to fill out a form with the state saying that they're homeschooling.
Okay. By the time the student is 7.
Right.
Okay.
And before I talk about this data, I want to make a disclaimer that the reason for withdrawal of students is not always provided by parents, and it's not always inputted correctly. So this is the best data that we have, but it's not perfect. Looking at the chart, you can see that the biggest reasons for withdrawal that have been given to us are transfers to other schools, transfers to homeschools, and discontinuations, which are largely due to lack of attendance. So overall, district is experiencing a decrease in enrollment since 2014. The largest contributors are homeschool students, students discontinued due to non-attendance, transfers to other school, and lower kindergarten attendance. We need to keep in mind that this is a trend all across our state and all across the nation, but also try to do things to increase enrollment where possible, such as increasing positive communication about our district, the great things going on with our students like we saw tonight. Continue and even strengthen our efforts to improve attendance. And I'll talk tonight about the possibility of becoming a Purple Star or military-friendly school, which goes on our website as a special designation to potentially attract new families moving to the Ellsworth base. And otherwise, really just truly focusing on providing the best educational opportunities available for the students that we have. Are there any other comments about that before I go on to my next piece?
Yeah, the discontinued due to non-attendance,
Mhm.
is that just our data? Like, this was a student, they got served truancy notices, and then their parents pulled them out?
Yes, for the most part, but like if a student is absent 15 days in a row, then they're discontinued, sorry.
Oh, okay, it's not
Mhm.
parents pulling them out, it's
Yeah.
just like, this is
And-
no longer a student.
There are a few others in there, like if they choose to enroll in a GED program or they age out due to special education. So there are a few other categories in there, but the largest is just that they stopped coming and they haven't enrolled in another school.
Can you go back to that, just the percentage? Oh, yeah, no, forward.
This-
Yeah. So 627 out of 2,100 that discontinued last year. Wait,
Yeah, that's not out of our total population. But- So it'd be 627 out of 12,000.
okay, so
And
that's
some of
like,
them-
that's 5%.
Yeah.
Of our enrolled students last year didn't finish the year. They
Yes.
discontinued due to
But they
non-enrollment.
may have come back. Again, I'm not 100% sure that this is perfect data. but-
Okay, that's a lot though.
But it is a
5%
lot.
of our students.
Yep, attendance is an ongoing issue.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Ms. Urban?
So for those kids that just get dropped, is anybody tracking them or is that just up to law enforcement? I mean, do we know where these kids are going if they haven't re-enrolled?
So some do re-enroll. This year, Principal Canta is calling each one of our students' families that are discontinued due to attendance to try to convince them to come back or to try a different program, that type of thing. And obviously, we also use the juvenile justice system for truancy.
Right, anybody else? All right, thank you.
Okay, the second part of my presentation is to talk about my superintendent entry plan. As you know, as I entered the district, I had 5 overarching goals and specific steps and activities that I would take to meet those goals. For the sake of time, I just provided you with the checklist for the first 3 goals of activities, but I did think that goal 4 and 5 were worth discussion. Because I talk about identifying the critical issues, priorities, and opportunities that I see within the district and what our potential is in terms of meeting our vision of strengthening the community through education, communication, appreciation, and celebration, our vision. So the first key area that I identified was our staff. I mean, everybody knows and recognizes that we have an extremely hardworking staff that are deeply committed to our students and dedicated to our families. However, we also recognize that compensation levels are lower than desired due to ongoing budget constraints. And that has caused a high staff turnover rate, which is negatively affecting our morale continuity of services that we can provide, as well as student outcomes. So our HR department has put together a special task force on recruitment and retention and are developing a comprehensive plan to address that. The details of that plan will be shared next week during our board retreat. Second, our facilities, and this will come as no surprise either. Our district facilities, many of them are overcrowded, outdated, and have significant safety and HVAC concerns. We do have a comprehensive strategic plan in process to address this. However, addressing all of the needs within the district, or even just the most critical needs within the district, would require a bond referendum. So the timing and the process will be determined at a later date. Of particular concern to me is the district's lack of safe and secure entrances in many of our buildings. I feel like that is a critical need that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. The next is the budget. We are operating within a deficit budget. Without legislative changes to increase public school funding, future budget reductions could be very likely in the future. We are actively advocating for increased funding at the state level. While simultaneously identifying and implementing cost-saving measures across the district. And we will have a special session to discuss that as well. Student enrollment, I already talked about, so I will move on from that. The next, really looking across the district, we have a pretty inconsistent building level school improvement or student achievement process that's not real clear or easily accessible. So that is something that we have just started to look at. We're going to develop a more consistent, transparent process that is really aligned with our strategic plan and cohesive with that, and hope to have that in process for the beginning of next school year to help guide our work. In looking at our data, we do know that we have significant achievement gaps that persist across the district, particularly for our Native American students, as well as students who qualify for free or reduced price meals. I will be recommending a reconfiguration of the central office administration later tonight to include a director of Indian education and school improvement, which would help us place a greater emphasis on the success of our Native American students and facilitate greater collaboration among our different departments and schools. Upon filling that position, an Achievement Gaps Task Force will be convened to further study the disparities and develop targeted action plans. It is my hope or recommendation that their study should also include a survey to determine to what extent teachers are incorporating the OSEU standards into their instruction. On the other hand, we do have several research-based initiatives in place to support student achievement. Response to intervention, or RTI, multi-tiered systems of success, MTSS, our PLCs, and the science of reading. All of those initiatives provide a strong foundation for improving instructional practices and student outcomes. However, if we're going to ensure their long-term effectiveness, we have to really focus on sustaining and strengthening those initiatives via a comprehensive implementation plan with high-quality professional development, coaching, and all of the necessary staff supports to make that happen. It will also be critical that we implement a strong recruitment and retention plan because we know we are lacking key intervention and specialist positions across the district, and we can't provide the interventions that are needed for RTI and MTSS without those positions. And finally, we need to work to better incorporate both attendance, which we talked about, and behavior strategies into the RTI, MTSS, and PLC processes. On a positive note, the district's implementation of junior kindergarten has been wildly positive. We have demonstrated strong early outcomes with 73% of our students attending junior kindergarten in the 24-25 school year entering kindergarten this fall at or above benchmarks, showing that they had become ready over that year to enter kindergarten. So I recommend that we continue to expand junior kindergarten opportunities to additional schools. We are looking at that right now with building administration, trying to determine the number of classes and the buildings where we can successfully implement more classes next fall. And we'll bring you a proposal in the spring. Career and technical education, we do have some good things in place there. However, the transition from career academies to career pathways and the reduction of several of our junior and senior level CTE courses has kind of diminished the depth and the coherence of all those experiences we can provide for our students. So we are looking now at ways that we can increase CTE opportunities moving forward. Visiting with collaborative partners and amongst ourselves to see what opportunities exist. We know that we will need to partner with community and industry folks and use a phased implementation process because of financial constraints. We just don't have the financial means to go out and hire additional staffs and create new facilities. Similarly, the district really offers very limited summer school opportunities, which restricts our ability to intervene for students beyond the school year. And because the research shows that a well-designed summer school program can yield about 4 months of growth in a very short amount of time, that is something that we are exploring. With hopefully the possibility of even offering some summer school this year using our Title I-A and Title IV funding. So it would not have an impact on the general fund. In looking at administrator and counselor to student ratios, we are below the national average, particularly with our counselors. And that limits our ability to adequately address student behavior and mental health issues, which are a big concern. Due to funding levels, we're not able to go out and hire additional staff. However, we're exploring opportunities within the community to partner with some of the organizations to provide some additional support services for our students. And then another positive, while most of our buildings are at or above capacity, General Beetle has available space following the closure of the community clinic. That part wasn't necessarily a positive, but anyway, we are looking at expanding our McKinney-Vento services available at General Beetle, including the possible addition of an additional food pantry there, which would be a great service to the families in that side of the community. Next, we have some good communication protocols that exist, but we also still hear from many constituents that they are missing key information. So we want to continue to look at how we can strengthen our communication. Some things that we have added this year are superintendent reports to the staff, listening sessions, staff and community newsletters, and we are working on an annual district-wide community report that will go out sometime this spring, really highlighting the activities occurring within the district. And finally, we have a community developed strategic plan in place that covers a lot of great things. However, we do need greater clarity, communication, and board engagement within that process. We are working on improving communication via a more detailed report that can go out to staff, families, and communities, outlining the actual strategies and goals that are in place rather than just the 5 pillar goals. We're increasing board involvement via our study session next week, where we will work together to set annual goals and short-term action plans. And really, we just have to focus on our 5 priority areas. You know, student learning, behavior and attendance, staff recruitment and attention, facilities improvements, community engagement, and communication. So overall, I feel like we have a lot of great strengths, you know, starting with our dedicated staff and our amazing students. We also have some strong processes in place like PLCs, RTI, and MTSS, as well as the science of reading in junior kindergarten. However, we can work on our school improvement and strategic planning processes to make them better, and have a stronger focus on our achievement gaps. Expanding counseling, CTE, and summer school opportunities should also be considered. And I'm looking at a reorganization of central office administration to include a stronger emphasis on Indian education, school improvement, and overall collaboration. Unfortunately, funding and staffing will affect how quickly and effectively we can move forward with some of these strategies. And we know that community partnerships and legislative advocacy will just be critical as well. One thing is, all of these activities that I talked about really fall within our 5 pillars. And the goals are listed for you there. I'm not gonna read them to you, but it is very clear when you start to list them out within the 5 pillars, how much overlap there is. Our student pillar really focuses on student achievement, attendance, and behavior. And it includes strategies to address family engagement, achievement gaps, and behavioral issues with that increased counseling services and behavior supports, enhancing summer school at CTE, and just focusing on our other improvement efforts such as RTI, MTSS, PLCs, science of reading, and junior kindergarten. That all is focusing on our students. Our staff pillar focuses on recruitment and retention of quality staff, professional development, and staff support, as well as the reorganization of central office. Our community pillar includes improving communication with families, staff, and community members, and really enhancing our community partnerships. The facilities pillar includes a comprehensive plan to address outdated and overcrowded facilities, safety issues, and HVAC concerns. And the communication pillar includes better communication surrounding our strategic plan, enhanced collaboration amongst our departments and schools, and stronger communication with our staff. Further detail and clarity will be added to this as we go through the process next week and engage in a full day of strategic planning in setting those action plans and specific steps that need to happen to make these goals a reality. But overall, my first semester at Rapid City Area Schools has been very energizing. I see a lot of strong potential in our staff and our students, as well as potential with our community for strong partnerships. And I truly believe if we can focus on some strong key initiatives and tie that with our strategic plan, that we can build a great future for our CAS, for our students, for our staff, and for our community.
All right, thank you, Dr. Thompson. That was a mouthful. Very, very
was.
informative.
A lot of work.
Thank you for being here and for the beginning part of your work. All right, Mrs. Clapham.
Thank you. I feel like you did like 18 months of work and like a semester. I don't know how you got all that in. So I'm really impressed. I'm very pleased. And I really appreciate the visual of how they fit into the pillars. That's really helpful. And this is probably coming downstairs for a second. Or have you had experience or know of the potential for like a summer school that collaborates between districts? Like, would that be even a possibility? I don't know with like liability and just like could that be done? It just came to me as I was sitting here, like some of the smaller districts around, I'm sure they don't necessarily have programs. And I just thought, I wonder like if that would be an option.
It's not something that I've looked into. We'd have to really look at the funding aspect of that, but I mean, it's not out of consideration, I would say.
So, well, thanks. Thank you. It was a great presentation. Very, very informative.
Mrs. Urban.
Yes, great summary. I just feel like I'd be remiss with a legislator in the room and hoping you can share with your colleagues, but all of these things that you've talked about really do require highly qualified staff. And as we look over the last few years and some of the instability that we've had because of, an array of factors, it's not just funding, but it is a large piece of it. And so I think as we try to accomplish these goals, I just think we have to be mindful that we need our state to support education, and we need to talk to our legislators and make sure they know that. It's truly short-sighted, I think, to not fund education, especially year after year, as we've seen the last few.
Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I was thinking the same thing, Katie, that it feels sometimes, as you've seen, like and as a board member, I'm in my 6th year, like we're kind of playing whack-a-mole, like, oh, CTE. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. We really need CTE. And then mental health. Oh my gosh, yes, we need mental health. And then we need principals like Mrs. Kanta who are calling families, and that takes time and money. And so it's nice that you put together this summary. It is a reflection of a lot of hard work. I appreciate your responsiveness to, I know concerns that I've expressed and that other members of the board about the achievement gap, and how we can help our Native students do better and succeed and be a vibrant part of our community. The one coming downstairs thing that I had is I just love Western Dakota Tech. And I think when we talk about expanding CTE, I think that it feels like we should do night high school courses at Western Dakota Tech. They've got a great facility. Or we should do summer school at Western Dakota Tech. They don't have summer classes. When last I asked, they might. But I don't want to miss opportunities for partnership with a great building and a great staff and our students, so that both entities kind of can thrive. That's my 2 cents that
We
I
are
hope we
having
can explore.
conversations with Western Dakota Tech as well as the School of Mines and Black Hills University. So hopefully we can create some strong partnerships.
All right, anything else for Dr. Thompson? All right, thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you.
Mr. Sassy with our Chief Financial Officer report.
Okay, thank you, President Carr. All of that is actually a really great segue into a discussion tonight, our last discussion in our series of these early budget indicators about state aid. We covered this last, as you recall, we discussed enrollment, we discussed property tax. We covered this last as the third major indicator because those previous two subjects play so heavily into the ultimate outcome of state aid. And you're going to see that in a very clear way as we talk through this information tonight. But what is state aid? So I think in general, state aid is a really misunderstood category. State aid has, in my opinion, the greatest overall impact on the financial condition of districts in South Dakota. State aid is heavily impacted, again, by changes in enrollment, property valuation. All those things feed deeply into how state aid actually works. I think it's the most misunderstood aspect of school finance. It is in about every angle that you could think about it, a deeply misunderstood category in terms of how it's calculated, what it does, all those things. And in addition, if you recall, 2 years ago, there was an additional legal requirement added to increase teacher compensation tied to the inflationary increase to the state aid formula. And so that makes that whole situation more complex. And again, we're going to discuss some of those things as we get deeper into the conversation. So from a really basic level, state aid provides what's called basic support funding to districts through the legislatively approved formula. And there are two different areas of aid. There's general state aid, that's the bulk of state aid that most districts get. And then there's state aid to special education. Those funds flow into the district's general fund and the special education fund and are used to fund basic operations of the district. So again, this is an area where I think there's a lot of confusion throughout the system. I always think it's important to talk about what state aid does not do. And this is based on feedback that I've heard as I've had different conversations about that. So state aid does not only fund teacher salaries. I think that's a common misconception that state aid, because of its tie to teacher compensation, only is meant to fund teacher salaries. That is not the case. Again, that money flows into the general fund and is used in any operational purpose for the general fund. It does not fund an entire school system. I think this is oftentimes confusing, especially at the legislative level, as some of those conversations are happening, that there's a conception that state aid funds the entire school system, and of course it does not. It's a really complex makeup of local effort or property tax, state aid, federal grants, discretionary grants, all those different things. And state aid is not earmarked only for specific expenditures. Again, I think that at times there's a conception that state aid is only funding specific areas of the school system. And again, that's not the case. It flows into the general fund or the special education fund and funds whatever operational aspects of those funds that are necessary. As we look at the significance of state aid and what does state aid mean to our district, in our current budget, the fiscal year 26 general fund budget was about 96.4 million. State aid revenue made up 35.6 million, or about 37% of total general fund revenue. So it makes up a significant portion of the overall general fund revenue. On the expenditure side, it is primarily funding salary and benefits. So about 85% of those expenditures are salary and benefit related. 93% of district employees are paid through the general fund. The remaining expenditures are really your basic operational costs, utilities, supplies, materials, professional services, normal business type expenses. And here's the real key. So although it is not the single largest revenue source, its major impact lies in how it interacts with, again, enrollment and property valuation, and acts as a governor to general fund revenue growth. And again, that's not a governor in the political sense, but in the sense that it controls how general fund revenue grows or stays static or decreases. And again, you're going to see a really good example of that as we push into the projections for next year. We talked a lot about this concept, and this really comes down to the idea that this is a formula issue. The formula changed drastically in 2017 after the passage of the Blue Ribbon Task Force bill, teacher compensation bill, and moved away from more of a per student allocation to a completely different formula. And this formula now has four major variables: enrollment, the target teacher salary, and I always highlight that because that's one of the more misunderstood aspects of the formula, the overhead rate, and finally the removal of local effort. And you'll hear me say often that this is an enrollment-driven formula, and it is. In all circumstances, it is an enrollment-driven formula. However, I think there's a really important distinction that has to be made, particularly this year after the governor's budget address. And that distinction is between the enrollment aspect of the formula and the inflationary aspect of the formula. So again, enrollment is still the driver. Enrollment drives the overall need of state aid to any particular district, right? So state aid is going to go up or down based upon the enrollment of a district and what's happening with the enrollment. However, that has nothing to do with the inflationary portion. So in the governor's budget address, you heard him say statewide enrollment is down, and that's part of the reason that we are recommending a 0% increase to state aid. Well, those two things are totally different mechanisms in the formula. The target teacher salary is the mechanism in the formula that drives the inflationary portion. And so a district is going to have a fluctuation in state aid and the overall need based upon movement in enrollment. The inflationary portion of that thing is a totally different mechanism. And again, you're as you will see in our projections, you're getting a double whammy impact when you have enrollment decreasing and do not have an inflationary increase. And you're going to see that play out here momentarily. So the overall movement of all of these variables dictate what is going to happen with the district state aid revenue. So again, the most common misconception is, well, we're going to increase the target teacher salary by X, and that means every district is going to have X more state aid. And that's not the case. All of these variables are moving, and depending on the movement of those variables, that will impact the overall state aid revenue. So when we look at next fiscal year 27, and the projection around state aid, we're going to see really similar impact to what happened over the last several years. The district is going to see an increase in local effort or property tax revenue, although to a much lighter degree this in that projection than we have in the recent past, and a decrease in enrollment. And this is really the specific mix of variables that state aid formula does not treat favorably. So from an enrollment perspective, we fell from 12,195 ADM in the 2024 state aid fall enrollment count to 11,948 ADM in the 2025 state aid fall enrollment count. That's about a 2% decrease. So again, we're seeing enrollment coming down. On the property side, we saw a 0.17% increase in general fund tax revenue. So again, that was a much less aggressive increase than what we had seen over the last several years. However, we are still seeing property tax grow. And again, the mix of all those variables is what is not treated favorably in that formula. The other two variables, target teacher salary and overhead rate, are controlled at the legislative level. They determine any increase to those areas. So I'm going to very quickly walk you through. I'm not going to deep dive into this, but this is the actual state aid formula and the projection for fiscal year 2027. You'll see enrollment is the first variable that gets dropped into this formula. 11,770 is our 2026 state aid fall enrollment estimate. Remember that we submit an estimate after our actual enrollment, and that's what the first half of the next year's state aid payments are based upon. That was the figure that we submitted, so we're stuck with that figure until at least September of next year. That goes through multiple adjustments and comes to the second portion of the formula, really the most misunderstood portion, which is the targeted certified instructional staff salary. This is, again, the mechanism where an inflationary increase is applied, which then runs through the formula. So you'll see at this point, based upon the governor's recommendation, I'm projecting a 0% increase. Now, we all know that there's a lot of process to play out, that it might not end up that way. However, we have to project based upon the best information we have at hand and then make adjustments as we go. That goes through multiple calculations. We come to the overhead portion, or the third major variable. This is the portion meant for everything outside of the instructional environment. That has been at that 38.78% rate for several years. I don't think it's been increased for 5 years, if I'm correct. So again, that's an area that the legislature could look at and increase based upon what's been happening on the inflationary aspect of things. And ultimately, all of this runs down to pumping out this final figure on the bottom of the page, which is the total general state aid need. And you'll see that figure is 88.5 million in this projection. I always like to mention the idea that that number doesn't really mean anything to us. It's just a figure that the formula pumps out so that it can continue to run. That's not how much it actually costs to operate our general fund or our overall system or any of those things. It's just a number that gets pumped through the formula. So then we come to, oh, why is that not showing up? Oh, okay. Then we come to the second portion of the formula, which is the fourth variable, the removal of local efforts. So we carry over the figure that you just saw, 88.5 million, and then we subtract all of our local effort, which is the first and second half property tax payments to the district, and then this category of local effort other revenue. That includes things like bank franchise tax, wind farm solar tax, things that are property tax adjacent but are not direct property tax. We remove all those from the general need, and we come up with what the district will actually receive, projected to receive in the next fiscal year. So you can see in this projection, that number stands at about 33.4 million. When we compare that to what we have in our budgeted in our current budget for state aid of 35.58 million, we see that we'll have a year-over-year decrease of about 2.19 million in state aid. So again, we're really seeing this double whammy impact play out where enrollment is down, and at this point, there is no recommendation for an inflationary increase, which really pulls that overall need down and holds down the ability to increase revenue. Yes, ma'am. Okay, all right, very good. I just added a note, break even point. So a point in which we would be level in state aid from year to year would require about a 2.5% target teacher salary or an inflationary increase at this point. Yes, ma'am.
That's with no increases to salary. That's just.
So this is just the revenue aspect of things. Yeah, just the state aid portion. Yes, ma'am. Correct. So it all really comes back to our cup analogy, right? The size of the cup is based on the need of the district. And by need, we are talking specifically about this number that comes out of the formula. That is what dictates the size of the cup, no matter what happens with any other variables. So again, all of these factors are moving and changing, which is impacting the outcome of the formula. If the size of the cup doesn't increase, then district resources are essentially capped, or as you're going to see here in a moment, can even decrease. And again, I think something that is very difficult at times for our stakeholders to understand is the idea that if property tax increases, but that need figure does not, the cup doesn't get bigger. The cup stays the size that it is, and property tax takes over a larger portion of the overall share of the educational environment. So we keep coming back to the cup analogy because it really does the best job, in my opinion, of showing that even in situations where you have revenue growth from property tax, you're limited as a district on what that looks like by the state aid formula. And again, the governor, it acts as the governor to the overall resource picture of the general fund. So with that being said, let's take a look at the revenue projections for next fiscal year. And this is really a great example of how this plays out. So from a local effort perspective or a property tax perspective, we're projecting to move from 54.19 million to 54.56, an increase of about $372,000, which is only about 0.7%. So again, we covered this in our discussion about property tax, but that's a much less aggressive increase than we've seen in the property tax area, even though our overall valuation grew than what we've seen over the last several years. County sources are about level from year to year. On the state side, we're projecting that we're going from 37.9 million to 35.8, which again is about a $2.19 million decrease, or about a 5.76% decrease in state funding. All the other areas stay even as we move through the year. Overall, projecting a decrease from 93.5 million to 91.7, or about a $1.8 million decrease in general fund revenue from a year-over-year perspective, which is about a 1.94% overall. So again, as we pull all of these factors together and we look at how all of these variables are impacting the district, we see the example of how this can all play out and ultimately pull district resources downward from a year-to-year perspective. So to go back to our cup analogy, essentially what's happening is now the cup has shrunk and we're seeing resources dwindling from a year-over-year perspective. I'm not going to dig deeply into this. We talked about this, I think it was last year or the year before, the complex nature now of having the average teacher compensation requirement tied into the law around state aid. Obviously, at this point, it's a 0% increase, and we'll continue to monitor that situation and talk more about it. I'm not going to dive deeply into that, but I think that's, of course, one of the things we have to keep in mind is that if there is an increase that comes through, that we have the teacher compensation requirement that we have to deal with from that situation as well. I always like to cover this because I think that as we talk about this situation, there are some very common arguments that tend to come out of these conversations. One of those is, well, increased property tax should make up for lost state aid, right? So if state aid is coming down, flat or minimal increases and property tax is increasing, then that should make up for that. And because of the way the formula treats the removal of local effort, that's only true if the other major variables are moving in a positive direction. So that's really only true if enrollment is moving in a positive direction or the inflationary increase is enough to offset an enrollment decline, which is very, very difficult. Again, the second factor is that governor effect. If the need figure derived through the state aid formula isn't increasing, it's very difficult to increase overall general fund resources. As a matter of fact, it's basically impossible. You're stuck at that number no matter what happens with any other funding source. So on paper, it would make sense that if you get more property tax, that you have more money. In reality, because of the formula and the way those variables tie in, it doesn't happen that way. The second really common argument that we hear, especially, of course, over the last several years, as Dr. Thompson highlighted earlier, is that if your enrollment's falling, then you should be able to reduce costs, right? You got less kids, you should be able to reduce costs. There's a couple aspects to this argument. The first is that we've continually reduced costs over the past 5 years. I'm actually working on a really nice document infographic to try to make that very clear in how we have made really significant efforts to reduce costs over the past 5 years. On the flip side of that, everyone has to keep in mind, we've been dealing with an extremely difficult inflationary environment. So even as you're reducing costs, the cost for everything else is increasing. And so it's doubly hard to then really achieve significant budget reduction. However, we made really significant efforts to reduce costs. We've reduced staff. We've reduced discretionary budgets. We've closed buildings. We've done a lot of things over the past 5 years to try to continually bring costs down. The second part of that argument is it sounds really good on paper, but it often results in a diseconomy of scale where it becomes very difficult to reduce expenses in this very nice linear nature alongside your enrollment. We have 23 schools in the district. We have patchy enrollment losses at each one of those schools. I always use the example that if we were a company that made widgets and we had 5 factories all in a row, and we said, okay, demand has fallen X%, we're going to shut down half of factory 5. It's this very nice linear economy of scale. We can't do that with a system like this. It just doesn't work that way. And so we have to be very cognizant of how we make the movements that are necessary to result in cost reductions. And that's often something that takes time. We use the analogy that we are like trying to turn a cruise ship, right? We don't turn quickly and easily. And because of the nature of our business, it often takes us time to be able to react in a way that results in significant cost reduction. So I always think it's important to highlight those common arguments as we're having these conversations and why they don't hold true in these situations.
And to be clear, and I want to make sure I'm correct.
Yeah.
If our enrollment falls this year, the way that the formula is set up is this year's budget is based on enrollment in September. So we would have to figure out ways after school has started to create those economies or to create those cuts. We've already hired our staff. We've already committed to contracts. We find out enrollment's down, and the way this funding is, that year we need, if this argument holds, we need to cut the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Just want to
that is
be
a true
clear on that.
statement.
I want to be sure the public is clear on that.
Which again, I think is a great plug for the idea of a enrollment averaging bill, because that's exactly the benefit is it helps to offset that drastic increase in a year that you've already contracted all of your employees, you already have contracts in place for services. Oftentimes there is very little you can do to make those adjustments in that given year. So the idea of an enrollment averaging, where if you have a decrease that is materially enough to impact your budgetary position, that would essentially cut that in half and help to lessen the impact and give you more time as a system to absorb the changes necessary to do that. But you're absolutely right.
And would it also be, again, probably saying more for the public? When we talk about that economy scale and shifting, one of the things going back to our strategic plan and facilities, certain facilities have capacity. For example, some of our special needs students, we cannot just move to another space. Is that like, we don't have like our certain wheelchair needs, certain health needs, like can't just be in any building. So if we were to try to combine them or scale them down, it may not actually be physically possible with our facilities.
Certainly, I think that's a very fair thing to say. Obviously, the educational environment has changed significantly over the past 50 years. And we really see that play out in the need in a lot of our facilities and how we need to make adjustments and ensure that we are ready for those. Obviously, that is a huge portion of that. I also think when you think about the other tie into this conversation to me is the operational environment of a school district, right? And this is something that gets very little attention, but for example, we've talked often, and this has come into play in a lot of our facility conversations, that even as enrollment declines, we have shifts in population, we have shifts in residential areas in our community. And we can't ignore those things. We can't just pretend that those don't exist. And in particular for our community, over the past several years, we've seen this major growth pattern in the eastern part of our community. And that area is at maximum capacity at this point. We have very little ability to continue to absorb those big increases in enrollment and population in that area. And so the areas where we do have capacity are typically inside of the city. And so from an operational standpoint, the idea that, well, you shouldn't build new buildings because you are seeing a reduction in enrollment would mean that we would have to take those kids from wherever they're at in the community and pull them into areas where we have capacity. That would mean more buses, more bus drivers, which we are already struggling very badly with. So I think oftentimes what some of these arguments don't take into consideration is the operational aspect of a district and what has to happen to make all those things work. So I think that's a really, really fair statement. So in summary, I hope this is a great example. In particular this year, you're really seeing how all these various factors mix together to shape the budget. It's much more complex than looking at just one area, one funding source, one expense area in the budget and believing that is the only factor that is shaping this budget. I would say at this point, there are a lot of ways that this situation can change. Obviously, we have the entire legislative process to work through this year. I think there are going to be a lot of good folks out there that are rooting for us and trying to get behind schools and education and bringing bills forward that hopefully can change what that situation looks like right now. Obviously, enrollment makes up a significant part of what happens with this overall situation. And so as we push through the end of this year and into next year and we get the actual enrollment count, that's going to make a big difference. So there's a lot of things that happen between now and the end of this budgetary process that are going to make a difference. But again, we're acting off the best information we have available now. Our next conversation is really going to wrap this up and then talk a lot about some of the parameters that we're going to use to approach the budget process next year as we move toward negotiations and we move really towards the fundamental portions of budget development. So with that, President Carr, I'm happy to answer any further questions that the board has.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Yes, sir.
report. Another mouthful, as they say.
Yes.
All right, board members, any questions for Mr. Sassy? Okay, see no.
I have one thing that I'd like to see, and I don't know how easy it is, or if you can help me find this information. I think that there's this perception that if the state increases aid to education by 3%, then the actual money that the state paid to South Dakota school districts goes up by 3%. And I'd love to see that historical data, what a 3% increase actually cost the state, especially because we know what the percentage that the state's been paying Rapid City schools has gone down because as our property taxes have gone up, we're saving the state money because we're paying you, everybody is paying higher property taxes. So the state's percentage has gone down. And so they think they give a 3% increase, but what I've heard from you is last time they gave a 3% increase, we didn't get 3%. I don't think we've gotten increases in state aid of significance in a while. Are those numbers easy to find?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Are they the Department of Education?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. They're on the Department of Education website. You can see the overall amount of funding that the state pays out to districts for state aid. I can absolutely put that together. I think you make a great point though. And again, the whole confusion in what you just said comes down to the idea that enrollment is driving the overall need. The increases that the legislature are approving on a yearly basis are just the inflationary portion, right? So depending, again, as you just saw play out on the district's unique situation, any district, not just our district, you can see increase over and above what the legislature approved. You could see a decrease even with an inflationary increase because all of those variables are moving. And so I think you're exactly right. You could sit down in any given year, and if the legislature approved a 3% increase to state aid, the actual amount paid out to school districts may be less than that. It may be more than that. It all depends on those other factors and how they're moving. So I'd be happy to put some of that information together. It's a great point.
All right, anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have no conflicts of interest. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Rapid City Area School policies, procedures, and exhibits. First reading.
I'll motion.
Been moved,
Seconded.
Any discussion about any of these, the first reading of these policies? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the first reading of the Rapid City Area School policy, procedures, and exhibits signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion, item 13, for the approval of proposed agreements and MOU.
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agreements and MOUs. Any discussion? Seeing no.
I just want to acknowledge the Great Plains Tribal Leaders Health Board and the improved access to mental health for our students. And I know that that's a need that always comes up. So I was happy to see that on the agenda.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the proposed agreements and MOUs signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. All right, item 14, approval of proposed student school board committee recommendations. Board members, you've been provided with the memorandum that we will be voting on, and the bill, House Bill 1008. So what we will do, we will get a motion second, and in the discussion period, Mr. Poliski, sorry, will make his presentation. And I don't know if we had set a time limit last time, so we'll be flexible 10 minutes. And then we'll have discussion, board members, you'll be able to ask Trenton questions, and then we'll take the vote. All right, so I will entertain a motion for the approval of proposed student school board committee recommendation or memorandum.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and we're in discussion now. Trenton, you may come and present your presentation.
First, I want to say thank you so much for your patience on my injury and the process that the student school board's been going through to navigate how we would like to do this with collaboration. And I'd also like to thank you for all the hard work you guys put for us students in putting our needs first. So to begin, the initial inquiry of this was with the student school board, and I wanted to make it possible in our district alone, in the Rapid City area schools, to allow for this credit to be an option for us. I quickly found that it was not part of the Rapid City area schools area to allow this, so I had to go and find other routes, and I found that I need to change at the state level. So I, as an individual, reached out to Representative Rice and got her to sponsor the bill. And now it is, as you know, in this legislative session, and I'm coming before you to request your support for the student school board's voice and our memorandum. Next slide. So what this bill does is it allows for a half a credit of PE credit to be used in athletic participation. Right now, the PE credit to graduate, you need a half a credit. The bill would allow for a quarter of a credit per year, as a sport only goes for a quarter of the year. And this bill would allow this idea to align with the DOE standards, and it would create a verification process. Next slide. This policy would recognize the significant time, discipline, and physical effort required of the student athletes while maintaining the intent of the state's PE standards. I understand that it's been a question on the mind, on the board's mind, of if it will maintain the intent and the integrity of the standard, and I believe so, and here's why. As a student athlete myself, when you go and for me, it was soccer, and it's similar with all sports, I'm sure, when you go to participate in this sport, you join a group where you are there with very diverse backgrounds. All of you have one common goal of making the team the best the team can be. And the hard work and discipline that you learn in collaborating with people who are very different from you, but having to work together for a common goal, is a skill that should be a high importance for students in what they learn, along with the fact that when you're a freshman or a younger classman, you come on to this team, you have a coach and upperclassmen who are mentors to you, and you learn to see what they do good, and you want to most times be like them and to do what they've done right. And similarly, on the other side, is upperclassmen have to learn how to lead these younger classmen, and when they're not so certain what to do and they're asking questions, the leadership aspect is a huge aspect that is also aligned. So I believe that the integrity and intent of this bill will not lower any standards. Next. So why this matters is it recognizes the structure and physical activities already occurring. Most schedules for student athletes is you have 5 days a week, you have 2 hours practice, and then you have a game on the weekend. Oftentimes, it is at a different school or a different part of the state, so you will have to miss Friday school, or if not, part of it. And this bill would provide flexibility in academic schedules for these students who are putting this hard work in. And instead of having to take a redundant class of the physical activity, they would be able to take a different class, a harder class, or a class to explore their interests in other areas, or to have more time to study in case their load is overwhelming. This does not eliminate PE, and students would still receive a health education because on the bill, I believe it's line 9, that there is a separate half credit needed for health education. And so this bill would only count for the physical education half of the full credit, half of that credit, and not the health standard section. In our Rapid City area schools, no change would be needed to integrate a health, because also on line 9, it says health or health integration would be needed, which is how the school district operates it right now. Next slide. So supporting this measure demonstrates the Rapid City Area Schools Board values student voice, initiative, and collaboration. As a student myself bringing this forward, and on behalf of the Student School Board, we see a need that we think would be a reasonable and a common sense change that we can make that can make our lives as students a little bit easier. Next slide. So some potential school board action could be to vote to endorse this bill in a later school board meeting, and to actively support this during the legislative session. Excellent. But tonight, what I'm asking for, and the Student School Board is asking for, is to support the memorandum to be sent to peer, and to allow our youth voice to continue to go forward into peer, and to be able to testify with the weight of having the Rapid City school areas, school board district, student school board. Next slide. Any questions?
Okay, all right, so, board, just for clarity, we are now in the discussion portion of this motion. And so it's an opportunity for, again, to ask questions, to have our discussion, and then if you have questions of Mr. Polisky, this is the portion that we're doing right now. After we have this discussion, then we'll take a vote. Okay, Mrs. Urban.
All right, Mr. Polisky, thanks so much for taking the initiative. It's really impressive that you reached out to a legislator, and I can see why this makes a lot of sense, but I had a couple questions. So our district, I think, requires a full credit of PE. The state is a half. Am I correct on that? Yeah.
So what our district does is it does our health and health integrated, counts for both PE and the health aspect. So the same class, the students essentially just it's the same class, and it'll give them both credit. So they take 2 semesters of either weights, or because they have an integrated part where they'll teach the students about some health aspects.
Got it. So my other question would be, did you talk to, I have 2. Did you talk to any of the PE teachers about their thoughts? I know a lot of them are coaches as well. So did you get their feedback? And then the other question I had is, if it's a quarter of a credit, then you would just take PE for 9 weeks?
So to answer the first question, I haven't reached out to any PE teachers yet, because the bill would still need to pass through all of the legislative processes to even have the option of being in the Rapid City area schools yet. And it would still be your guys' choice to allow it here. So I figured take it one step at a time, work through peer right now. And so it's a quarter of a semester per year. So if you take soccer your junior year and your senior year, then you get the up to 0.5 credits. If you go back to the second slide. So in total, you can get the whole half credit needed over the years.
And then I know that part of the argument was that the fine arts, that's an option for fine
Correct.
arts in our state. but not in our district. Our district has not allowed that. And I wanted to put that out there because I didn't know that until I looked into it a little bit further.
Okay, Ms. Stephenson.
Thanks, Trenton. This is really good work and nice job on your presentation. I'm super impressed. In full transparency, some PE teachers have reached out to us on the board to let us know their concerns. So I'm going to ask a couple questions based on what I heard from some coaches, or well, not coaches, PE teachers. I guess, and also just based on my own as I'm listening. So would there be a grade for this? If a varsity athlete gets 0.5 PE credits?
So it would likely be a pass-fail grade, but that would still be up to the DOE to write that.
Okay. To get the health credit, would we have to develop another course for these varsity athletes so that they get their 0.5 of PE through their sports, but they still need the 0.5 of health?
So as I said on line 9, it says to get the health credit, you either need a health class or a health integrated class. And in our district, a health integrated class is how it's done. And to show that it works, how I have gotten credit is through that, because my sophomore year I lived in Utah and they have the policy of your sport will count. Mm-hmm. So I got the PE credit and then I took a lifetime PE and got the health side.
Okay, so we have health integrated into our PE, right?
That's correct.
Yes. Sorry, I can't raise my hand. This is Director of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation. Yes, we do have the integrated health into our PE. And so that's why we require the full credit, because they're getting health and PE at the same time. So if this route was to happen, we would have to make sure that they could get the health credits while they were in the sport, which I see a lot of challenges with that. So I believe we would have to create a separate health course to meet the graduation requirements. And that is not currently something Rapid City Area Schools has or is doing.
Okay, thanks for that input.
Yeah, going off that, so it's not something we have right now, but it's what the item before you tonight is, just to allow us to go in front of the board and in front of the in peer, and to make this an option so that it can be an option, not necessarily to figure out that nitty gritty quite yet.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm happy to vote to allow, I think we're voting to allow you to do this, and I'm happy to vote for that. And I want you to see the whole process through. I'm just going to give you a heads up. There might be some school officials, probably across the state, who are going to have similar questions to what I'm asking tonight. So I'm a little concerned that it's varsity only. Why did you choose varsity? I'm just going to add, I'm not concerned, but why varsity only? Well,
the bill, I wanted it to be varsity only to kind of help with the integrity aspects of, if your varsity athlete is art, you obviously have to work harder to get that. But the current bill does not include that verbiage.
Oh, okay. That took care of that. And then are esports a varsity sport?
So it said athletic sports. So that would qualify. If you go to the South Dakota High School Athletic Association, it has
it's an activity.
Easy drop down. It says athletics, and it says football, soccer, track, and that's what it counts for.
Okay, thanks for answering my questions.
Yep.
All right, Mrs. Clapham.
So as Ms. Stephenson said, just really this is discussion, so bringing forth parts of discussion. And I think we are just gonna, as a board, have to clarify a little bit like exactly what we are voting for, because there is a little bit of confusion on that. So I just want you to know that, and that's not your fault. It's just, this is new and we're all kind of stumbling through it. So I appreciate you stumbling with us and being patient with us. Because one of the other things that has come up, and it's a little, and I think this is where it gets hard with bills and knowing, is that there are varsity coaches who are not certified teachers. And so to have someone taking a class from a teacher who's not certified could create a barrier, an issue as far as logistically and policy wise. Like we don't have it's not, I don't actually know the majority of the number of the varsity coaches, but that could be a potential barrier in our district and in other districts, just because it's not a qualification to be a coach necessarily to be a certified teacher. So, that is one of the I'm super impressed with even the idea and the wherewithal to move forward with it. It's so complex. And I know bills constantly live and change, and so obviously what this looks like today is not what it might look like in 3 hours for, that things will change and happen. But that was just another concern that was presented from staff, is if you open the door to having credits of people who are non-certified, like kind of the what's next. And even though that's more adjacent to you, like not necessarily, but that could create that conversation of what does that look like, generally speaking.
Okay,
I can say that in order for us to be an accredited school district, the teachers have to be certified in the state certified in the area of which they're teaching or granting the credit. So those coaches would have to be PE certified. And we do have many coaches that while they're able to coach, many of them are not actually certified in the area of PE. So that would be one thing we would need to consider.
Learn something.
but as you said, it's still a live bill and could change, so that's not necessarily a discussion topic.
Ms. Urban.
I'm struggling with this a little bit because I think that this could be a good thing for a lot of districts, but I'm not sure I could support it for my own district based on some of the things we know and the way that we currently operate. But I do like the idea of potentially allowing it to be an option in other school districts. And I want to support you, and I want to support the student school board. Obviously, we're not always going to agree on everything that you guys bring forward, but I think this is impressive. And since we're not voting on it as, with our district, I think it's a little bit of a different story too.
Okay, any other board member, any other comments? All right, I think I would like to say that, first of all, this presentation, your efforts is just simply impressive. It speaks to your character, it speaks to your education and your effort. And Mrs. Clapham has said this on more than one occasion, that if you're the example of our future, then we're in good hands. So I applaud that. I applaud when we first started the student school board, I remember you bringing up this issue. So to know it's this issue from its infancy to now is again also impressive. With that being said, I was so excited about starting the student school board, and this is a great idea and a great concept, that I did not think about the process and the procedure. And so I won't be supporting this, not because it's not a good bill, not because anything against you, but because of the process. I don't feel that the Rapid City Area School Board should necessarily approve a memorandum to go to the state that we ourselves have not approved. I think, again, in setting up the students' school board, I did not have the foresight to calculate how ideas from the student school board gets through the district. And again, for everybody, this is our first time doing this, so we're learning and figuring out and just kind of, as Ms. Clapham said, just kind of stumbling through it right now. So I apologize for that on my case, that we didn't have that, all our ducks in a row to figure out. I think that this issue should have at least come through the superintendent's office and then she make the recommendation to the full board. So again, I just think that procedurally, I won't be able to support that because we could have done it in a better way. We still could have come to the same outcome, but I think the way that we did it and the track that it took should have been different, so.
Thank you. I respect your opinion and your idea and your, thank you for telling me how it went. I would just like to say as a student that the need of a student should come before the procedural precedent.
I respect that. And then also let me say that when we started the student school board, in my eyes, it's not just the club, it's not just eye candy, but I want this type of thought, these type of conversations from the student school board to the board, again, just in a different path, that it takes a different path, so.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Ms. Clapp, Ms. Stephens.
Thanks. And President Carr, I just wanted to express why I'm in support of this is because I do think it says pretty clearly that this is a memo from the student school board to the legislature. It's not a memo from us. And as Trenton has said, it's not in final form. Whether or not I'll lobby for this bill, I don't know. I'm gonna have to learn more. I'm gonna have to see what it looks like and see what amendments are proposed. But I don't wanna vote against a memo coming from the student school board to the legislature. Cause I feel like that's a roadblock that we don't have to put up. I don't think there's any danger. I don't see a downside of this going from the student school board to the legislature. I don't see a downside for us. And maybe your concern about precedent is enough of a downside, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to let you all know why I think it's, I feel comfortable voting to allow the student school board to send this memo.
Okay. Ms. Clapham.
So a couple things. I appreciate what Ms. Stephens said. I think, and again, I'm gonna tread real lightly here. I feel like we're still sort of forming, and I think when we use the term precedent, which I try not to overuse, if the student school board is technically a committee of the board, which I probably still need clarification on. If that is the case, it does become confusing to say we would allow something from a committee of the board, that we would pass it even if the board doesn't. So that's a little tricky. And again, I think I'm in very gray areas here. So it's, for example, to say if the legislative committee or the finance committee had an idea and the three of them liked it, the rest of us didn't, and to say, well, that can go to the legislature because it's not coming from the board, like that's a little hairy, I think. And I just when I looked at this before, it's the language that we're voting on, I'm not completely clear on, so I'd want to clarify exactly what we're voting yay or nay, because I will be very honest, it's not based on the attachment and what that says. I'm not clear, and I just always want to make sure when I am voting yay or nay for something that I am clear on what I'm actually saying yay or nay, and not kind of in the dark.
Okay, so what we're voting on, the student school board is requesting that the board allow them to send this memorandum of support to the state legislator, saying that the student school board, the Rapid City Area Student School Board, supports this bill. Okay, so we're voting to allow this student school board to send this memorandum to the legislature, this year's legislature. What is it, 101st? 101st.
And so that makes sense. I will say, and just like when you look at just the attachment we have, it says second to approve the student school board administrative rule as recommended by administration.
The motion that is written there is incorrect. We will
Right.
need to make a motion that says basically what Bishop
Clark said. So that's what I was wanting to clarify, because the way it sits in front of me and the way the public would have seen what we're voting on is not actually accurate.
Okay, so if you've read the motion that is part of that is an attachment to the agenda, that is incorrect. That is not the motion that we're making. We're making a motion to approve the proposed student school board committee. It technically out for the motion sake, memorandum. We'll use that word instead of recommendation. One moment, please.
And I would take away.
I would take away committee. I think proposed student school board memorandum. And Jamie, I say that because I don't see the student school board as a committee of the board. I think a board committee consists of board members doing work on behalf of the board. I think the student school board is a student activity that that various board members sit in on, but we do not take part in the student school board. They're not doing our work, they're doing their own work. So I don't think of the student school board as a board committee. I think of the student school board as an activity. Much like if there was I don't know, if there's some legislation that the drama club wanted to support and the drama club wrote a letter. I don't want to say that the student school board is just a club. I mean, it's a lot and what you're doing is important, but I feel like this is analogous to that.
Can I say
Yes,
something?
of course.
It's my understanding that what you approved last school year did call this student school board a committee. And so that may be something that we need to look at changing if that's not the way the board wants it to be, but that's the way, what you voted on last school year.
Yeah, correct. And those are some of the conversations that we already started. And that is part of the process, again, that I personally will take blame because I didn't have the foresight to map it all out to know that, again, because in my mind, this almost passed the superintendent's eyes and or approval. And that was unsettling to me, that the student school board came directly to the board without administration, without the superintendent, without PE teachers, without anybody else's input or conversation. And I don't think that serves us or serves the students actually. So, okay. All right, I see clap hands and Stephenson's hands up. Do you all still have?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion? So for clarity, I will read the motion again. I'm asking for a motion to approve the proposed the Rapid City Area Schools Student School Board Memorandum. Is that clear for everybody? All right, okay, I'm in my head, but we'll be okay. All right, so I made the motion. Do we have? We have a motion. We amended the motion. Okay, okay, so all in favor of amending the original motion signify by saying
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, so now the motion is been amended. Now we're had discussion on the amended motion. Any other discussion before we take a vote? And Sheila will take a roll call vote.
One discussion, or I think clarity, I'm gonna try to read this as accurate as possible, but so the student school board is technically an advisory committee currently. So yes, it uses the word committee, but it is advisory. And it says that this information that's advisory or informational, and these committees do not necessarily make formal recommendations to the board. So if that helps, it might just make it even more muddy for other people, I don't know, but so it's technically committee, yes, but it's an advisory committee. So
And again, as part of this discussion and for everybody, we will obviously we don't even have a policy and put them on. So there's a lot of work that we all will have to do to make sure that everybody is clear on what they are and what they're not, who they report to, and that work has already started today, actually.
Yes, we had our first meeting today with Kelsey Parker, Kristen Kiner, Sean Binder, a couple of others. And Kelsey is going to draft a proposal. And then we'll meet again with actually the student school board president and vice president to get their input before we finalize something to bring to the board for consideration.
All right, and I think this is a good thing. I don't think, obviously, any new organization, any new process, there's growing pains, and we're just going through the growing pains, so.
And not to speak for them, but they said the same thing at the meeting, that they really wanted to have solid policy and procedure in place so that there wasn't confusion.
Yes, Ms. Moore.
So just help me understand, if this doesn't pass, can we start it over again and go through the superintendent and do it right? Would that be what would happen now if this doesn't pass?
Two things, thank you for that. I think it was the legislative calendar that they wanted this on this legislative calendar. And my understanding is to delay it in any way wouldn't.
That is correct. I think by the time that we put policies and procedures in place, it would be non-effectual. It just would not have any point.
Yeah, good statement. And thank you for that, because it made me want to make this other statement. Our vote tonight does not affect House Bill 1008. It's been presented and it will go forth, and Trenton will make his presentation to the state. So we're not hindering this bill in any way. It's only whether we allow this letter to be presented. Okay. Any other questions? This is good. This is very good. All right, roll call vote.
Troy Carr,
No.
Jamie Clapham,
Yes.
Katie Urban,
Yes.
Donna Moore,
Yes.
Walt Swan is not here, Angela Rafferty,
Yes.
Christine Stephenson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. I will entertain a motion to approve of the proposed Title VI position. I don't know if we need, does any board members need this explained? I think we all got the email.
Do you mind explaining?
Of course, finding
I don't know, this might be a little heavy. No.
Following the resignation of our Title VI manager, I asked our Human Resources Director to do some research on the history of our Title VI position, because there was a lot of conversation about that. And that is what you can see on this slide. Over the years, the position has really vacillated between a manager, a coordinator, and a director position. Typically, if it was a director position, it had some other additional responsibilities attached to it. I also asked our HR director to complete a classification review of our current Title VI manager position. She looked at the job duties and responsibilities and determined that as it is currently set up, it really does align with a manager level position rather than a director level position. However, as we've noted in previous discussions, there is some value in it being a director level position. So my proposal tonight would make a change to our structure at central office regarding our district level administration. It would align the Title VI position to be a director level position with the appropriate level of duties and responsibilities for that level of a position without adding any additional costs to the budget. So. The basic structure of this is that we would elevate our Title VI or Indian Ed position to a director level position by adding Title I-A, which provides extra funding to schools with high concentrations of poverty so that they can close achievement gaps and improve outcomes for students who need additional support and school improvement. Okay. This would allow the position to really focus on helping to eliminate achievement gaps for our Native American students, as well as our students who qualify for free or reduced price meals, and ensure high levels of programming for both. Second, we would change our Director of Student Success position to include military-connected students in hopes that we would be able to become a Purple Star school, which is something that military families look for when transitioning to a new base. We would then remove Title I-D and McKinney Vento from that position to ensure that she has enough time to focus on that key area. The third piece is that the Title I-D and McKinney Vento duties would move to our Director of Federal Programs, along with the community-based alternative education programs that are currently supervised by our Title I-D principal. So those two positions would be combined into one, but would no longer contain Title I. The fourth piece, which isn't reflected here because it's already been done, is our Director of Teaching and Learning and Innovation, Jen Roberts, is keeping Title II, which is professional development, as well as our state literacy grant. And our Associate Superintendent, Dr. Strasser, will keep our safety and security grants, as well as supervision of the district's behavior team. So many of the federal programs positions have been spread out so that we can effectively meet all of this. When looking at a cost analysis, absorbing the Title I principal position into the Director of Federal Programs position would reduce our costs by probably $95,000 to $100,000. On the other hand, moving the Title VI manager position to an Indian Education and School Improvement Director position would cost an additional $38,000 to $48,000. So I'm estimating that overall, this proposal would be a cost savings of $50,000 to $60,000. I would recommend we wait to make any actual changes until we have the Director of Indian Ed and School Improvement hired so that we don't have multiple transitions. There are lots of advantages to doing this. It's elevating that Title VI position to a director level position, placing a stronger emphasis on improving outcomes for our Native American students, putting a stronger emphasis on building level school improvement efforts, and hopefully doing all of that, reducing our achievement gaps for our Native American students, as well as those who come from disadvantaged or poverty backgrounds. It also allows us to place a stronger emphasis on military-connected children, giving them better services, and hopefully that Purple Star designation, which could result in additional funding via increased enrollment and or future impact aid, which is something we've been researching. I think it will help with recruitment efforts for the Title VI Indian Ed position. And again, it is a cost savings. The only disadvantages that I saw is the temporary instability that we have due to transition. And there would be less admin at RCAA, but I talked with both Dr. Conroy and Mrs. Kanta about that. And they both said that it would have very little impact on RCAA itself because Dr. Conroy was not involved in that piece. He was supervising other programs, not the alternative program.
Hey, Ms. Stephenson?
Yes, I had to look.
Would the Director of Indian Ed and School Improvement position require a doctorate degree or doctoral degree?
I don't think we would require a doctoral degree. I mean, even some people don't require that for a superintendent. We would require a master's degree and maybe say that, you know, a doctorate or advanced degree is preferred. We haven't really worked out all of those requirements yet because it hasn't been approved.
Mhm. I feel like one of the reasons that I like this plan and I like elevating an Indian Ed director from manager is that it allows us to cast a broad net, even in a nationwide search, get people who to apply who really have a high level of expertise in helping reduce those achievement gaps. And whether that's someone here in the state or somewhere else, I'm pleased that we'll be able to have high requirements. We'll expect a lot from this director, and the director level position will reflect that. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed Title VI position as presented by Dr. Thompson.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Title VI position as presented by Dr. Thompson. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Any consent agenda item a board member would like to pull? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Okay, that motion carries. All right, item 17, committee reports.
I don't think many committees have met.
Well, we don't have, well, finance, but it's up to you.
I'll just for finance, all I wanted to say is that we had a lot of conversation about different scenarios, kind of dependent on what happens at the legislative level. And so more to come. And I know that, you know, over the last several meetings, Coy has given us a lot of information. We're going to have more at the next one. And then I think a bigger discussion.
Can I add one thing to this? Of course. Because I forgot to email this out, but we did decide that we would not need a separate study session to go over budget, but instead we would have longer items at our January 20th and February 3rd board meetings to cover that.
And I think the other thing that we talked about that Mr. Sassy laid the groundwork tonight for our discussion on our next meeting. So if board members, if you want to rehearse what he said tonight, and community, if you want to be up to date on what we'll be discussing on the 20th meeting, then again, Mr. Sassy laid the groundwork for our next discussion on tonight. Is that correct what we said? Okay. All right, any other committee reports?
I just wanted to let you all know that the legislative committee is going to meet. We have reserved Wednesdays at 11 to meet during the legislative session, acknowledging some of those might be canceled, but we just wanted to set a time. I think that I would ask you all to look for updates from the legislative committee in your inbox as the session progresses, because there might be times where it's just, we want people to make phone calls or reach out if they can.
I do have last year, again, fumbling around through processes, we had a system of what legislation the school board would support or not support. Has there been any conversation on whether we're going to be vocal? Okay, what did?
Jump in if you would like, but we talked about the fact that, you know, once the bills are out there, we'll review those and bring what we feel we want to take a stance on to the overall board to vote on in that regards. But then if there's something that comes up very quickly within the session that we need to take immediate action on, that Coy or I would have the ability to do that. We would just need to report back to the board at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I think that's what we said last year, that we would give in the event that there wasn't time to make an opinion, that you all, along with our lobbyists that that we are working with would give us an opinion. Okay, I think that's a better process than trying to approve 1,000 things, and I approved 1,000 things and didn't look at one thing and had comments about that, so.
And I'll say too, we did talk about the fact that, you know, learning curve, that it was basically like every bill that could
Yeah.
possibly affect us. And I think this year we're gonna focus, and like, there are some of those that aren't even gonna make it out of committee that we probably shouldn't invest our
Yeah.
our energy in. And we just, part of it was that we didn't have a legislative committee last year to help them filter. And so I think we'll also work as a filter to like, yes, maybe this is like education adjacent, but it's not worth us putting our energy in, so we're not even gonna like bring it forward, kind of thing. So I think that process will be better this year than last year.
Okay, all right, very good. At this time, anybody need to take a break, or you wanna just press on?
I didn't, just because we just have course
Okay.
listings and other, right?
All right, course listings guidebook, who's in charge of that?
I think it's
I
just an
believe that is
exhibit.
just an informational point for you at this time to take a look at it
Yeah.
and that we may vote on it at the next meeting. Mhm.
Okay, so that's.
So
that's it.
between now and the next meeting, if you would read through those, and there aren't any major changes, I can tell you that. It's just little pieces.
Okay. Well, you know, usually we get a handbook presentation, so.
Sorry, this is Bobby Joe. So I didn't put anything formal together because really there is not a lot as far as changes to the guidebook this year, other than some very minimal just grammatical changes and so forth. We did remove trigonometry as a course offering because with the addition of AP pre-calculus, that was only being offered at Stevens High School, and the numbers did not warrant continuing that course offering. So that course is being removed. And as far as any additional courses being added, there's French 2 was approved through Instructional Council. And so that course is being offered at Central High School moving forward. But other than that, there really is no significant changes within the guidebook.
All right, thank you.
And President Carr, this is the course listing, but it's not the student handbook, is it?
No.
That's a totally different, that we have gotten presentations on the handbooks.
That's what I'm confusing.
Yes, and if you guys have any additional questions regarding the course guidebooks, feel free to reach out.
All right, board members, do you have any others? Ms. Clapham.
Really briefly, just because it happened since the last time, I wanted to commend and congratulate Dr. Thompson on every time it's the first weather call. It's just hard and somebody's unhappy and I just think in one of the most unique weather situations I've ever seen, you did an incredible job. You know, I think some of the public, well, it was too late. I think people should know you always err on we want kids in school. So sometimes that's edge it out a few more minutes to see if we can make it happen. And I know you did everything in your power to communicate and also to keep our students and staff safe. And so I greatly appreciate that. I said it was extremely unique. So, you know, trial by fire. But thank you for that. And that I said, it's never an easy call. And I'm glad I don't have to make it.
I got some texts from back in Norfolk saying, what, you're calling off for wind now?
You just.
You know, gotten soft going rapid.
50 degrees.
I clarified, it was 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. All right, any other board member? All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no.